Hi, I'm Beth from Restyle Pieces Boutique. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing a makeover on this buffet. I went to see it. I didn't realize that there were 3 shelves in it that didn't match. 2 of them were badly stained. The stain job wasn't very good and they were really thin and ugly plywood. And so I'm going to have to fix those shelves before I can do anything else. So let's see how this makeover turns out. And if you want to watch, stay tuned.
This buffet is actually in pretty good shape. The drawers slid well, the doors were pretty good shape, but it was just those shelves that were really getting on my nerves. And I cannot believe that I didn't look closer. It was kind of dark in the dining room where I looked at it, and you can see we've got one that's original and the 2 that are these pieces of plywood that are kind of chipped up and really not stained very well. So I have to get these out first thing and get started on figuring out what I'm going to do. This shelf on the left was original, and so I knew I had to get my mallet and just kind of try to bump that out of there. It came out actually pretty easy. Although the supports, you could see there was little pieces in there that I was going to have to touch up with stain and the back wall, but didn't look like it was going to be too bad. And thinking about what to do, I could probably use these as templates for my new shelves, but I was going to let that marinate a little bit. First of all, what I always do, take out all my drawers and get my vacuum out and vacuum this piece out, clean it, and rinse it. And I had to have my husband come out and flip it over with me because I knew there were going to be little spider eggs or cobwebs or something underneath, and I was going to get that cleaned up first. I'm going to try to influence you for a minute. I'm not a very good influencer, but look at this beautiful sweatshirt, nice worn in, beautiful pink with lots of paint stains on it, just for you. After I vacuum, I use my Farmhouse Paint Pure Power Cleaner, and it is a cleaner degreaser. It just gets all the grime and grease and maybe furniture polish or whatever was on this piece that I didn't know about, and cleans it off so that it can help my paint adhere to my surface better. Now I'm rinsing it with just plain water. Here I'm taking a card and I'm checking how close my drawers are to the edges and the top, because when I paint that top edge on the inside, I don't want it to rub. So I might have to sand a little bit in places to make sure it'll go in smoothly after I paint. And it looks like on this left edge of the big drawer, I'm definitely going to have to sand a little more thoroughly. Time to remove this hardware, and I do keep the hardware and the screws in a little bucket, and then I'm going to try to clean those up later, and if I can't get them as clean as I'd like them, then I will be spray painting them. These latches at the bottom work very well, but this one was kind of sticking a little bit, so I just put a little oil in there, moved it up and down, and now it works perfectly. As I was thinking about using these shelves for templates and buying some new wood, I decided that, or I found out that they were not exactly the same square. So this one is a little bit too far in and a little bit too far out on that side, so it's not straight. So I'm just going to cut off a little edge, a little sliver of that to make sure that's squared up. Check out what happens next. Watch it closely. This is why you don't stand behind your table saw, because I could have got hit with that piece of wood. Now it's nice and straight. It's even across the front, and I can use it for a template for my shelf, my new board that I purchased at Home Depot. So as I said, all the products that I use in this video are down below. So this board was the perfect board. It was the good size. It was a nice quality. It stained well. So right here, I was just drawing around those shelves, and my husband's helping me to get these shelves cut. I have my 3 shelves cut to the proper size. I'm going to be tracing the little cutout notch in the back that sets the shelf where it should, because there's a support in the back of the piece. So I'm just gonna draw lines there and cut that out with my jigsaw. So this next part, I'm just making sure I make a little line to cut that shelf shorter. And this one, I want to make sure I have the edge that's finished in the front. So I was very careful to make sure that where I'm cutting is where I really want to cut, and that I have the front of the shelf where that front edge of my board is finished. Now I'm clamping the board that needs to have the cutout cut with my jigsaw. I'm using 2 clamps on both sides of the front of my workbench, and then I'm just cutting those notches out. And now the moment of truth to see if they fit. Yes, success. Love it. They stand out like a sore thumb right now, but when they're stained and finished, they'll look great. And I want to make sure my doors close with those shelves in. No problem. So now I'm sanding these pieces down with a 220 with my Surf Prep sander, just to get them nice and smooth before I start staining. I tried a few stains because I knew I wanted a dark stain, but I wasn't sure exactly which one would work the best. So I picked out 4 of my stains, and I did a sample board of something that I had cut off of the shelves just to see what I liked. And Minwax Provincial was the winner. Because it is a laminated pine, I do not want my stain to get all blotchy. So I'm using a pre-stain conditioner. Just follow the directions on the back of the can, and this will help my stain go on more evenly. I brush it on, I wait 5 minutes, wipe it off, and then wipe off the excess, and then I can stain with my Minwax Provincial stain. This is an oil-based stain, so I just use a foam brush so I don't have to clean it out with mineral spirits or whatever. I can just let it dry and then toss it out. So I'm putting a nice layer on my board, and then I will wait 10 minutes and then wipe it back. During that 10 minutes, it really soaked up the stain, and so it was very easy to just wipe back a little bit of excess. Looks a little light right now, but when I add that top coat later, after 3 days, I'm gonna add a water-based top coat. You wanna let it dry for 3 days. And while I'm doing that, here, I'm going to scuff sand my piece and get it ready for painting. The top had quite a few nicks and dings and scratches, and so I wanted to sand that down to bare wood. It took a while. I started with a 120 grit, I think, and it wasn't going much anywhere, so I went down to an 80, and then it got better. So I'm sanding off the edges and the top, and yes, it takes a while. I do move through my grits from 80, and then I clean off all the dust, brush that off. Yeah, I said it takes a while. I was getting tired. I go from an 80 to a 120 to a 180, and then I stop there because it's nice and smooth, and I check out the top to see if I think I want to stain it or paint it or what. Always a good time when you're done and that beautiful, nice, smooth top. So if you can see the edges, they're not exactly the same color. It's a different kind of wood, and I did have a couple of nicks that I needed to fill, so I wasn't going to be able to stain this top. So since it's mahogany, I'm using Ben primer, and I'm going to roll that on. This is an alcohol-based shellac white primer. It is wonderful at blocking bleed through, which mahogany likes to bleed through, and I don't want any bleeding through on this light color that I'm going to be painting this piece. So I roll that on, let it dry overnight, and then I'm going to sand that smooth. Next, I am going on to repairing some places that I found. I'm using Quick Wood epoxy putty. It's a 2-part putty that you mix together till it's one color, and then you can put it on your repairs. I let mine dry overnight before I sand it, so that's good timing because the bin shellac on the top has to dry overnight, or I like it to before I start sanding and doing something else, and this will dry overnight and I'll get it sanded. So I'm moving to the bottom. There are a ton of little nicks and dings down there, so I'm using Bondo Spot Putty. It is a nice thin putty that just covers over those crevices and those nicks and things, and I'll sand it over and it'll be in good shape and ready for primer. I always say I gave my piece chicken pox. Okay, everything's thoroughly dried overnight, so I'm just taking my 220, 180, not sure. I also taped up the drawers, or the doors, as you can see, because I'm going to be painting the inside of each door. So I taped over those with Scotch plastic and tape, and then some green frog tape so that I don't get any overspray in my piece, because I am going to be spraying it. So as I was saying, I am going to sand over all these pieces. They'll be nice and smooth, and everything will be ready for primer. After you sand each time, whether it's a scuff sanding or sanding these little dings and crevices, you want to make sure that you clean your piece off thoroughly with just a damp cloth to get all that dust off. Time to prime. I'm using Kills Restoration. It's a water-based primer. I have had really good luck with this, covering, smoothing places out and covering any bleed through. Now, if it's a really strong place where I sanded a lot, like the top, I'm going to have more bleed through than I can handle. So that's why I used the bin on the top. So I do strain my primer and my paint, put it through the strainer into my sprayer cup, and I'm ready to spray. I am using my Fuji Q5 Platinum Sprayer. I have not had this very long, but I'm really liking it. It has lots of adjustments, and I'm going to try to get used to all those adjustments because it's not as perfect as I want it, but it's already doing such a beautiful job. As you remember, I primed the top already because it was bare wood with my Ben shellac-based primer. And Wise Owl and Farmhouse Paint, and I'm not sure if there's any others, but those paints cannot be painted over a shellac-based primer because there's a possibility of it crackling. So I use my Ben shellac primer on the top first, and then now I'm using my water-based primer, my Kills Restoration, to prime this entire piece, including the top, so that I won't have anything but water-based primer underneath my farmhouse paint. Now that that's finished, I let my primer dry overnight, and then I come back tomorrow. I'm using a Surf Prep Rad Pad. It's a very high grit sanding pad, and I'm just going through and lightly knocking down any little nubs or things on my primer so that I can have a nice smooth finish, and then I'm wiping it clean. I also did some little repairs you can see on the front of the doors with that quick wood because there were some little seams in there I didn't like. So now my favorite part, I'm using Farmhouse Evolution paint in the color Greige. It's a beautiful neutral, and I can't wait to get it on my piece, and I think you'll love it too. I add a little bit of distilled water and mix it up so it's the right viscosity, or it's thinned a little bit so it'll go through my sprayer better. I filter it, pour it in my sprayer, and I'm ready to run. So I'm going to let that dry for an hour, hour and a half, and I'm going to try to clean up this hardware. I'm using a solution of half cleaning vinegar and half water. I'm going to boil those for 10 minutes. Then I'll take them out with my pliers because yes, they'll be hot, wearing my gloves also. And then I'm going to scrub it with this quadruple zero steel wool. A lot of times, if it's brass especially, it will clean that up beautifully and you will have a nice shiny finish. Sometimes you don't. And so then I have to make a decision. Do I like it like it is or do I want to paint them? So much better, but I'm really not thrilled with some of the little pieces on it, the nicks and dents, and the knobs were a little bit different color. So I am going to be spray painting these with Rust-Oleum Metallic. It works wonders. So now I'm going to be doing my blended top. I have it painted greige. I've taped off the bottom. I use these party 54 by 108 inch party table covers to just kind of tape off the bottom because I get messy when I do this. So I'm using Stain and Finishing Oil by Fusion. I'm using the colors Cappuccino and Natural. And because Cappuccino is so dark, I'm just going to mix those half and half because I don't want it super dark against that really light paint. This is an oil-based product, so again, I'm spreading this stain and finishing oil on with a foam brush. I try to get like I don't know if it was a 2 or 3 inch, I think it was a 3 inch. And I'm just spreading that on my surface, and then I will be wiping that back in straight lines, all the way from one side to the other. Because it is an oil-based product, you have a lot of open time, probably, I'm guessing 15 minutes maybe. So I don't have to just put it on there and worry that it's going to dry out on me in no time. I can go back over it a few times, make sure I have it covered well, and then I can wipe it back. Depending on the look you want, you can wipe back just a little bit or wipe back a lot. And I chose to wipe back a little bit more because I wanted a more subtle look. And now I've let my stain dry for 3 days. It was an oil-based stain, if you remember. Minwax Provincial, and now I'm stirring up my clear coat. This is from Farmhouse Paint. It is from their Pro Series. It's a satin finish and it's going to turn out beautiful. I use a misting bottle to make sure that my brush is a little damp while I'm doing this process. In between coats, I let it dry and then I sand lightly with a high grit sandpaper, and then I put on my next coat. I sand all the coats but the final coat. Check out that beautiful shine. Much better than the shelves that were in there before. Now I'm just going to make sure that I close my lid up tightly and always put a rag. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I think I can just do it. I don't think I got anything on the rim. And then I'll splatter myself or my project with the paint or the top coat. So we're at the end, folks. Here's what the buffet started out to look like. Brown and needed some shelves badly. Here's the shelves, if you remember. And now, here's how the shelf looks now. And inside the piece, much better. And look at that buffet. Oh my goodness, the subtle top that's blended. And then the beautiful neutral color with those drawer liners that I picked. I'm super happy about this piece.
Thanks so much for watching today. If you would subscribe to my channel, I'd really appreciate it, and hit that bell button so you can get notified when new videos come out. Till next time, see you later.